All right, if you are using AI to write smart contracts, by all means do it. It'll save you time. But I want to give you some advice, and this advice is test your contracts. If you don't test your contracts, someone can get in your contract and drain all your funds. Okay. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can test your contracts. Just to begin with, I'm sure you already know, but you can use ChatGPT to write smart contracts. Something like create a meme coin smart contract with some interesting code twists. I'm adding that little bit at the end just to see what it does. Okay, so this one has, I guess it's a rug pull immune smart contract. And let's have a look at it. So it's using the ERC20 from OpenZeppelin, ownable, Okay, so there's essentially this is a smart contract that then has some modifiers to prevent people dumping. So like you can only dump this amount, and there's a tax when you dump that amount, etc. Okay, this is all good. This smart contract actually looks quite cool. I would love to test it out. The problem is, how do you test it out? Because you can deploy it to the test net or even to the main net, and you can start interacting with it. But that's super duper slow. Imagine, what if you want to simulate 10,000 transactions? Are you going to go and click that 10,000 times? I hope not. You should not. You should use a thing called Foundry. And Foundry is essentially a blazing fast portable modular toolkit for Ethereum application development written in Rust. Okay, so if I summarize that, essentially it is this. You can test your contracts using Foundry, and it is super duper fast. Hardhat, you can also test your contracts, but the problem with Hardhat is that it's mostly written in JavaScript, and also it is slower. Whereas Foundry is much, much faster, and it's written in Solidity, which is this language here. That is the language you're going to be using to write smart contracts. So it's really nice to have a testing framework that's in the same language that you wrote the contract in. Okay. Next thing I will note is it's pretty easy to install. You have to use this command. If you have a Windows computer like me, you're going to have to also install git bash. And this is so that you can use the git bash terminal. And to do that, super easy, just download this and install. Okay, so going back to this git bash thing, I can actually show you my environment. So this is my coding environment, my repo that I created for this video. You can see here it says bash, 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 bash. That's because I have git bash installed, right? So when I open up a new terminal, I have the options between git bash, command prompt, JavaScript debug terminal. For Forge, you have to use git bash. Okay, so there's that. This repo, I've already installed Forge. I've also used this force command. This is because I had this MD file in here. If you try to Forge init with anything in this repo, it's going to give you errors. And if you want to just bypass that and install it next to whatever you have, then you can use force. I've also installed the OpenZeppelin contracts. You can see that here in the library. So this is the Forge, the basic contracts used to test your whatever you're doing. And then OpenZeppelin, this is this. So when you do Forge install OpenZeppelin contracts, it's going to add all of this stuff. You can see in here it has all of the things that we're going to be using. So for example, token, ERC20, ERC20 Sol. So this is the actual base ERC20 contract that every meme coin is going to use. And so that's what we did by installing it. We put it in here. Okay, and then let's see, what else do I have on this list here? So, the final thing that is a little bit weird about Forge is that you should make this thing called remappings. And that's because for some reason, these library files, when it is getting imported into the testing files, so for example, this, sometimes if I delete this file here, and I go back to this file and I save it, probably will give me some sort of error. Well, it's not. But if you see any errors here, that's because you don't have the remappings file. Okay, so all that said, let's go. I want to show you what it looks like when I actually test this token. So this is just a very, very basic token, even more basic than the one that ChatGPT made. Okay, it's just my token, ERC20. It's going to make, what is that? I think 1 million tokens. Okay, and yeah, 10 decimals. So it's just a very, very basic ERC20, a pure meme, nothing special. Okay, and this is the testing file. So this is the Forge magic right here. You can see that it's installed or importing the Forge stuff, so test and console. It's also importing that Sol contract. So this one here, mytoken.sol, it is being imported into this. Okay, so here are the imports. This is where it is setting up the different addresses. So for example, this token, this ERC20 meme coin token, it's right here. Here's two different addresses that it's created for testing, right? So maybe Alice is going to send Bob some tokens. Well, to do that, you have to create variables for that. So address 1, address 2. Notice here that Forge is smart in that I put address 1, and it will then turn that into a true on-chain address. Okay, just to make your life easier, you can just put 1, 2, 3. Do that as many times as you want. The next thing in Forge that you should know is there's a thing called a setup function. Okay, and in this situation, it's actually taking my contract and it's deploying it to this address, right? So that's what we did here. So it takes your contract, makes it. It also, I've added some console logs here. So this is so we can see some information. So after the setup, it's always going to tell us the name. It's always going to tell us the symbol. And this is just nice to have because then you know if everything is running smoothly at the beginning. Because after that, it's going to go through all of these different test functions. Notice all of these start with test, lowercase test, and that is mandatory. In Forge, it needs to start with lowercase test. There's another one called like test fail. In this situation, we're just doing test, like does, you can see here, right? Assert equals. And so let's just break into this first one right here. So this is going to test the initial supply. So first, it creates a variable called expected supply. And so essentially what it's saying is it should have this many tokens. Okay? This variable should be this many tokens, and that's how many we are trying to create from this contract right here. So you can see 1 million times 10 decimals. You can see in the test contract, it's exactly the same. 1 million times 10 decimals. So it's just testing. Did it deploy correctly? And this is going to assert equals, which means does this equal this? So in our ERC20 token, it has a total supply. Does the total supply equal the expected supply? Okay. So I'm not going to go through all of these functions. I've created a couple, one to test the transfers, one to test the transfer. So there's two different types of transfers, right? Transfer and transfer from. These are the two different types of transfers in an ERC20. It's going to test both of them. Yeah. So I want to stop talking. I want to show you this magic. Let's go. So when in order to test this, in the root, you can type a thing called forge test. Just like that, it will actually run the test. First, it compiles the contracts. Then it's going to run the test. You can see pass, 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 which means all of my functions are passing. If this were an actual token I was trying to test, then you're good to go. Okay. If you wanted to, I'm going to delete this too. This is the default function, default contract in Forge. I'm just going to delete that just to be clean. So delete that. So now we have just my token, which means I can show you the second one, forge test. If I add these tags here, right? So -VVVV, you can add 1, 2, 3, 4, however many you want. I think the maximum might be 4. This is essentially how much detail do you want to see. So if I press enter, it should show me now the actual transfers. There we go. So see all this information here. Let's go to the very top. Same thing as before, it compiled the contracts. The difference here is that it's showing each step of the way. So first, it's showing the console log. Then it's showing the other console log. So it's showing every step of, like everything the function does, it's doing it piece by piece. And this is really, really helpful because if you see any sort of red errors in there, you can go exactly to that part of the function and that contract and know exactly where it's failing. All right, so I think I'm going to wrap up this video here. I hope this was helpful. This is called Forge Foundry. It is a smart contract testing framework, and I love it. Goodbye, friends.